Hi, my name is Stacy Karkinen, and I'm going to talk to you today about self-scheduling, increasing job satisfaction. Now, I hope everyone was able to get a PowerPoint handout of the presentation for today. Our objectives for today's presentation is to determine if self-scheduling improves job satisfaction, to confirm that self-scheduling improves employee retention and absenteeism, and to discover how to implement effective self-scheduling. Now, many of us have been in the situation where we are working on the floor or in a department or in a unit where we have to request days off and someone else does the schedule for us. That's the traditional culture in the workforce today, is where a specific person makes the schedule, and to get days off or vacations you have to request for those days off. With the new schedule, and every time a new schedule is posted, emotions are associated with that schedule, and these include anticipation. Will I get my days off? Will I get my vacation? Excitement for those who may have some seniority and can forecast and predict that yes, they will get their days off. And then you have distress. The employees that forgot to get their request in by the deadline, or they're newer to the facility, so they pretty much know that there's no chance that they're going to get their days off, and they get distressed about missing their children's school programs, not being able to go on vacation. They're always crossing their fingers. You also have concern about, will it be fair? Will it be out on time? And you always have those that are going to try to make that change and make it right if the schedule isn't out on time. And then that's depicted in the little characters that I have in my PowerPoint presentation here. Hopefully some of you can relate to those situations and have experienced how negative and what the negativity it can be with that situation. Now, on the other side of the wall, we have our scheduler. The scheduler is trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together. The scheduler also has distress because of the time that it takes putting the schedule together, the puzzle. There's vacation days, requested days off, medical leaves, training days, holidays, the ever famous contract rules, special requests from people. And after you put all of those puzzle pieces together, you come to find out that there's still help needs, holes in the schedule. You rearrange, and more help needs are in the schedule and needing to be filled. So like I said earlier, it brings distress to the scheduler also. Now finally the deadline looms, the deadline's approaching, the schedule just needs to be posted. It gets posted and the tsunami hits. Now, if you want a way to meet the staff, meet the people in your facility, in your department, create a schedule, because all of a sudden the scheduler becomes the most important person in the organization. That scheduler will get emails, phone calls, and the ever famous unexpected office drop-ins. Now, I guarantee that the communications the scheduler gets after the schedule is posted are not asking about how his weekend was or how the day is going. Even after the schedule is posted, there's this cloud of negativity that looms over the department. And that cloud of negativity gives energy to the emotions of anger, sadness, of course, negativity. And then again, there's also that perceived favoritism. Thankfully, though, almost every unit has the happy guy, the happy gal, somebody who, no matter what happens, you're not going to take their sunshine away. And that helps to decrease that negativity a little bit, but overall, there can still be a very negative feeling every time that schedule is posted. Unfortunately, with this negativity and the inflexible work situation that many of us face today, leaders and organizational leaders are faced with trying to find how can they retain their staff, how can they make their job atmosphere a better place for people to work so they want to stay. And that's a lot of what we're going to talk about, is improving job satisfaction. So self-scheduling has been found as a way to improve job satisfaction. So what is self-scheduling? It's a scheduling methodology that puts the responsibility for the creation of the unit or the department back on the employees themselves. That is, the employees are scheduling themselves to meet the department demands. Now, inflexible work schedules for staff nurses and other types of scheduling problems can affect job satisfaction, which then eventually leads to nurses leaving their positions. We know that inflexible work schedules inhibit the work-life balance, decreases morale, results in a higher absenteeism, and encourages workers to not only leave their positions, but some of them make the decision to leave the workforce altogether. Now, this doesn't seem like it's such a bad issue, and it seems like, oh, sure, people have the right to be stay-at-home moms or to leave the workforce. But as you'll see later on, this can be a huge impact in healthcare itself. Now, Wang and Gupta found that in absenteeism, the average absenteeism rate ranges from 6.4% to 8.3%. Nurses have a 55% higher absenteeism than all other healthcare occupations. So when I was talking and mentioned the 6.4 to 8.3%, that's absenteeism for nurses, not other disciplines, just for nurses. What they found was that 19% of the absenteeism was due to family or personal responsibilities, not necessarily absenteeism or disability. This brings us to a cost of $734.3 million, and that was found back in 2012. So the absenteeism for nurses is a huge expense and a huge strain on the healthcare industry. So employee retention, as I talked about earlier, it also becomes a huge financial strain on institutions. Now, the workforce, as according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics has found, is predicted to grow 26% through the year 2020. That's only 2.5 years away. It's estimated that at that time, there will be 1.2 million registered nurse job openings. So a little bit earlier, I was talking about nurses leaving the workforce or employees choosing to leave the workforce because of inflexible work schedules. With this many openings expected to be happening within the next 2.5 years, and we are actually seeing some of that right now, we can't afford to have our nurses leaving the workforce altogether. We need all nurses that are trained to be nurses to be able to contribute to the healthcare community and some of these open positions. Hospitals currently spend approximately $373,200 for every just one percentage point of nurse turnover. This does not include, this only includes orientation and overtime pay. So in 2015, the national turnover rate was 17.2%, which included job termination, not internal transfers. So let's put this into perspective. If you have a unit with 100 nurses and the annual cost, and you use the 17.2% turnover rate, the annual cost of nurse turnover is $6,419,040. That's a pretty high number. And again, healthcare leaders are faced with how to decrease that number and save that money, especially in a time where all healthcare agencies are cutting costs because of increased costs and lower reimbursement payments from Medicare. So why self-scheduling? Why is that such a big issue right now, and why are so many different facilities interested in it? First of all, healthcare agencies are seeking ways to improve job satisfaction. Evidence shows that self-scheduling is effective in improving this job satisfaction. So when developing self-scheduling or thinking about developing self-scheduling and bringing it to your facility, you first have to think about how you're going to do it. Successful implementation of self-scheduling includes leadership support and staff involvement. Those are the first two things that we should be looking at. Leadership support is important because leaders need to know what you're doing. What are your goals? How are you going to accomplish it? How is it going to help their facility? If you're going to put time and energy into something, what is the kickback going to be for the facility to make it worth their time? Now, we do know that research suggests that in order to effectively introduce self-scheduling, nurse leaders must involve staff from the early stages of development through the implementation phase and the program evaluation phase. So selecting a committee to represent different groups for your staff is going to be important to keeping staff involved. You want to select representatives from different areas, such as day-night staff, straight night staff, straight evening staff, day evening, straight days, RNs, LPNs if they're involved with it, CAs if they're involved with the portion of the self-scheduling. Again, the goal here is to get representatives from every area of your staff so that they can bring in their viewpoint on different guidelines that are going to be put in place a little later on when you're making out the self-scheduling guidelines. So it's still in the developing stage. You also are going to do some more planning, setting those guidelines, educating your staff, and then you have to know that you're going to expect resistance. The staff is going to resist this at first, or at least some of them. And then there's going to be continued evaluation that'll need to be done because things change, needs change, department needs change, facilities change. We all know that healthcare is an ever-changing field. So continued evaluation is important in continuing to make self-scheduling successful. So when you're in the planning stage, you want to identify problem areas by surveying your staff. Once you survey those staff, you can find your baseline results. And with those results, you can then set goals. And these goals should be achievable goals, something that you know that you can achieve with the changes that you're making. Then you need to create guidelines. Guidelines must take into consideration contract and organizational rules as well as labor laws. The last thing you want to do is make some guidelines, have the staff schedule it, and then end up with a lawsuit on your hands because you did not abide by some of the rules. Next, you're going to educate staff, and then you're going to educate them again, and probably have to educate them a third time. Educating staff is important to making sure that they understand how to self-schedule. It can run into a very inflexible schedule if staff start scheduling incorrectly so that their schedules that they selected always have to be changed. One way to educate staff and to work out any glitches is going to be to run mock schedule periods. And in these mock schedule periods, you can find glitches with computer software, understanding or lack of understanding for staff, and make adjustments as needed. Once your self-scheduling has started, you want to survey your staff again and see, you can compare that data and see if you've made any headway on your goals in achieving any of those goals. If you haven't, you can hopefully find and address any reasons or find any problem areas as to why you may not be attaining those goals or reaching those goals, and adjust the situation to perhaps then be able to reach those goals. When educating staff, what you want to point out with your staff is that they can create their own schedule which will decrease the amount of schedule change requests that they will have to make. In fact, when they are making their own schedules, it increases their job flexibility so that they can avoid conflicts with their non-work commitments. And then amazingly, we still will find that department needs will be filled, so there won't be so many help needs. It also gives staff control, and as a result of that, they have more autonomy. But hold on, like I said before, there's always staff resistance. People take comfort in what they know. So something new is very uncomfortable, and a natural response is this negativity. Pointing out how self-scheduling, like I said in the previous slide, can help staff increase the acceptance of this change. So the results, what have we found? I looked at a study that was done by Wright, McCart, Rains, and Orman in 2017. What they measured is how self-scheduling affected autonomy, professional development, and RN turnover within 4 hospitals in a large healthcare system. When they looked at autonomy, they found that it was increased by 31.5%. Now keep in mind, or I will tell you, that their goal was to increase it by 5%. It actually increased by 31.5%. Professional development, also with the goal of trying to reach 5% of an increase, actually increased by 12.9%. RN turnover, again, had a goal of improving turnover by 5%. What they found is that 2 hospitals reported that there was a decrease in RN turnover. However, 2 hospitals had a slight increase in turnover. Unfortunately, there were so many outside variables that affected the ability to calculate percentages, or a specific percentage, so they were unable to come up with any specific percentage of change or of an increase or a decrease. Another study that I looked at was a 2014 literature review of 31 articles. This study looked at morale, control, work-life balance, flexibility, staff turnover, and absenteeism. What they found in the area of morale is that nurses reported that they had a sense of shared ownership and decision-making. It increased team building, decreased confrontations, which that's music to all of our ears, and work became a more pleasant and positive work environment. Control. In the area of control, nurses reported that they had an increased control and power over decision making. They had freedom over personal lives, resulting in giving better patient care. And it gave them a feeling of empowerment. And I don't think any of us expected that self-scheduling would result in giving better patient care, so that is a win-win for both facilities and for staff. Now, when we look at work-life balance, nurses reported pleasure in being able to schedule their work around their non-work needs. They felt that their quality of work and life improved, and they found a better balance between work and family. And this goes along with their flexibility. They reported having improved flexibility. So looking at staff turnover and absenteeism, staff retention and commitment improved. Again, not just the retention, but the commitment to their job improved. Nurses reported an increase in flexibility, which resulted in less nurses being called into work on short notice. And that's always nice, because how many of you have ever worked in a department where every day you were off, you were getting a call to come in and put in extra hours? That can be nice at first, but it does lead to nurse burnout very quickly. Nurses also reported that the staff turnover had decreased in just 1 year of starting the self-scheduling. There was also a reported decrease in absenteeism. So in conclusion, We have found that increasing job satisfaction is a common issue among healthcare organizations for the reasons of not only financial, but because of the need to fill open positions with nurses. Evidence has shown that self-scheduling has been effective with improving job satisfaction. Self-scheduling affects staff by giving them power in decision making. It improves work-life balance, gives staff a sense of control, gives staff flexibility and autonomy. It improves morale. There was an increase of professional development, improved productivity, decreased absenteeism, and an increase in staff retention. As Koenig said, more flexible work schedules can benefit nurses and their organizations. And I'm going to leave you today with a passage from Wright, McCart, Rains, and Orman from their study. It says, self-scheduling, a variation of flexible scheduling, is viewed as an option for creating a more balanced work life for nurses, and as a result, is becoming the norm for recruitment and retention of nursing staff in hospital settings. Are there any questions? Thank you for your time today. I hope you found this presentation useful and helpful. Thank you.